There are things that happen in the dark, things that no one can fully explain. Tonight, I'll take you into the shadows of my own experiences. Every word you're about to hear comes from a place of truth, or at least, from what I remember. When I moved into my new apartment, the bedroom had one strange feature: a heavy, floor-length curtain nailed into the wall. It didn't cover a window, just a blank stretch of drywall. The landlord told me not to remove it. "Leave it be," he said, handing me the keys. "It's better if you pretend it's not there." I thought it was a weird design choice, maybe there was mold or water damage behind it, but I didn't care. Rent was cheap, and I was desperate. The first few nights were normal, quiet, until I noticed something strange. Every morning, the curtain looked different, like it had been gently moved, just a little off from where it had been the night before. One morning, the edge of the fabric looked pulled, like someone had tugged it outward. I assumed it was the draft, or maybe my cat, Nora, playing at night. But then Nora disappeared. She'd never run away before. I searched the whole apartment, every closet, every cabinet. Finally, I stood in front of the curtain. My chest tightened. Something felt wrong. I called her name, and I swear, I heard her meow. From behind the curtain, I reached out, heart hammering, and pulled it back. But there was no wall. Behind the curtain was a small, dark alcove I'd never seen before, maybe 4 feet wide, completely hollow, like someone had carved a room inside the wall. I stepped in. Immediately, the temperature dropped. My breath fogged. The light from my phone flickered. In the corner was a pile of things: toys, dust, bones, and Nora's collar. Still warm. Something moved behind me. I spun around, and the curtain had fallen shut. I grabbed it, yanked it aside, and stumbled back into my bedroom, slamming it closed behind me. I nailed the curtain down myself, and I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I called the landlord, demanded answers. He sighed. "You opened it, didn't you?" I didn't answer. "You should have left it shut. It can't cross without help. But once you open the way, it notices you." I asked him what it was. "Something old," he said. "Something that doesn't belong here. It pretends to be things you love. Pets, voices, memories." He hung up. I tried to move out the next morning, but when I opened my front door, there was only darkness on the other side, like the hallway had vanished. And from behind the curtain, I heard Nora's meow again, closer this time. Now I hear her every night. Sometimes it's not just her. Sometimes it's my mom's voice, who died last year, or my best friend laughing, or my own voice, whispering things I never said. They call to me from behind the curtain. "Come back in. We miss you. It's better in here." I've stopped responding. I've blocked the curtain with furniture, nailed it again, sealed it with duct tape and salt. But some nights, I still hear it rustling. And this morning, the curtain was open just a crack, wide enough for something to slip through, wide enough for something to watch me sleep. It started when I moved into a new place with an old mirror. Antique, they said. Hand-carved oak frame, probably from the early 1900s. It came with the apartment, bolted to the wall above the dresser. I didn't think much of it, looked kinda cool, added character. But the first time I noticed something was off was about a week in. I walked past the mirror and caught my reflection smiling. Except I wasn't. I was tired, half asleep, walking to the bathroom. But in the mirror, my face held a wide, twisted grin. A flash, gone as soon as I turned to look directly. I laughed it off. Sleep-deprived. Maybe a trick of the light. But it happened again. A few nights later, I was brushing my teeth. I leaned over to spit, and in the corner of my eye, I saw movement in the mirror. I froze. Looked up. My reflection was still brushing its teeth, but it was using its left hand. I'm right-handed. I dropped the toothbrush and backed away. I stood still for a full minute, staring into the glass. My reflection just stared back, mimicking my every move again. Perfectly. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe not. But from that moment on, I couldn't shake the feeling that the thing in the mirror wasn't me. Not really. Things escalated fast. One night, I walked into the bedroom and the mirror was fogged over, like someone had breathed on the glass from the inside. Then handprints appeared in the fog, pressed against the glass. Small, childlike, too many of them to be mine. The next day, I covered it with a sheet. I couldn't bring myself to look at it anymore, but I still heard it. Scraping, tapping, a soft whisper, "Let me out." I asked the landlord about the mirror. He got real quiet and told me it was original to the building. "Been here longer than I have," he muttered. "Longer than anyone." I asked if I could remove it. His eyes went wide. "Don't." He told me the last tenant tried. Smashed it with a hammer. They found her days later. On the other side of the room. Every mirror in the apartment shattered. No forced entry. Only her body, twisted like it had been yanked backward with inhuman force, and one message, written on the wall in blood. She got out. I haven't touched the mirror since. I keep it covered, taped, sealed. But still I feel watched. I see movement when I walk past it. Sometimes I hear breathing. Or laughter. And last night, I woke up to find the sheet on the floor. The mirror was uncovered. My reflection was already awake, staring at me. It raised its hand before I did. Smiled before I could react. And then it whispered something I'll never forget. "You're the reflection now." Then it walked away. From inside the mirror. And I'm still standing here, inside this glass prison. Screaming with no sound. Watching it live my life. If someone finds this, please break the mirror. Not to free me, but to trap her. Before it's too late. When I moved to Charleston for a new job, I was just looking for a place that was quiet, cheap, and close to work. I didn't need luxury, just peace. I found a decaying colonial duplex at the edge of town. Chipped white paint, shutters hanging crooked, and rent too good to be true. The owner, Mr. Gilmore, was an old guy who lived downstairs. "Place has history," he told me, as he handed over the key. "Been in my family for generations." Then he added, almost as an afterthought, "If you hear footsteps at night, just ignore them." I laughed. He didn't. The first week was uneventful. I set up my furniture, unpacked, and settled in. The floors creaked constantly, and the pipes groaned like an old man trying to get comfortable. Nothing I hadn't expected from a house that probably hadn't seen repairs since the Reagan administration. But by the second week, I noticed things were off. Small at first. Things went missing, my keys, my phone charger, a sock here and there. I blamed myself. I'm forgetful. It's not that strange. But then they started coming back, placed neatly in spots I'd never leave them. My keys on the windowsill. My charger coiled perfectly beside my toothbrush. I live alone. I started to feel like I wasn't. One night, I stayed up late working on a report. Around 2 a.m., I heard footsteps in the hallway. Not heavy like boots, light, deliberate. Pacing. I assumed it was Mr. Gilmore. The floors were thin and sound traveled. But the pacing stopped directly outside my door. Then 3 slow knocks. Knock. 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 I grabbed a bat and yanked open the door. Nothing. The hallway was empty. I checked the lock. Still bolted. All the windows were closed. I told myself it was my imagination. Sleep deprivation. Stress. But I started sleeping with the bat next to me. A few nights later, I woke up gasping, certain I'd heard someone whisper my name. The room was silent. I sat up, listening. That's when I heard the sound again, softer this time, like breathing. I turned my head toward the wall beside my bed. The breathing was coming from inside it. I pressed my ear to the plaster. My heart sank. I heard shuffling, and a low, almost gurgling whisper. "He's watching." I confronted Mr. Gilmore the next morning. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept in days. "You shouldn't have moved the dresser," he said. I froze. "I never told you that." "You did," he insisted. "When you moved it away from the wall," he woke up. He wouldn't say who he was, but he told me to sprinkle salt across my doorway and keep a candle burning at night. I laughed at him again. He didn't smile. Things got worse. I started finding food missing, water running while I slept, and always that slow, steady breathing from inside the walls. One night, I set up my phone to record while I slept. The next morning, I found the phone under my bed. The video was still running. Almost 5 hours of static. Then, at the 3 hours 11 minutes and 42 seconds mark, the static cleared. Someone stepped into frame. It was me, or something that looked like me. Same clothes, same posture, but the eyes, they weren't right. They were too wide, too white. The figure leaned over my sleeping body and whispered, "He's not dreaming anymore." Then it looked straight at the camera, and smiled. I tried to leave, packed a bag, grabbed my keys, headed for the door. But when I opened it, I wasn't in the hallway. It was a crawl space, cramped, cold, wood pressing in on all sides. I slammed it shut and turned around, back in my living room. The apartment had shifted. The layout was wrong. The windows looked out onto brick walls. My reflection in the mirror lagged behind me. Then came the voice again from inside the walls. You open the door. He's awake now. I stopped sleeping, stopped eating. I spent hours staring at the walls, waiting for the sound. It always came, scratching, whispering, giggling. Then, one night, I found the entrance. Behind the bedroom closet was a loose panel. I pried it off and found a narrow passage. Someone had carved handholds into the wood. Candles lined the path. The air smelled like old meat and sweat, and in the center of it all, a tiny room. Padded, moldy. Carved into the walls were hundreds of names, including mine. On the far side sat a man, gaunt, naked, eyes milky white. His mouth moved silently, lips dry and cracked. When he saw me, he grinned. Then he spoke. You're next. I ran. That was 3 days ago. I haven't seen Mr. Gilmore since. My phone doesn't work. My texts don't send. When I look outside, it's always the same, gray sky, no sun, no movement. Sometimes I catch glimpses of myself standing in the hallway, staring at me, not blinking. I don't think I ever left the walls. I think I was always here. And I think you'll be here soon too. Because the man in the walls, he's always looking for someone new. I'm not sure how to tell this without sounding insane, but I need someone to hear it. I work in forestry. Surveys, trail planning, fire lines, that sort of thing. I've been in the woods my whole adult life. I've encountered bears, wolves, even a mountain lion once. Nothing ever scared me. Until the Stillwater job. Stillwater State Preserve is a patch of dense forest in the upper Midwest. Private land turned public recently. My team was hired to map trails, inspect the terrain, and report any safety concerns. Nothing unusual. We were given a map, hand-drawn, faded, and a warning. Stay away from the North Basin after dark. I thought it was local superstition. Something about the land being cursed. I've heard it before, but I should have listened. There were 4 of us on the team, me, Kara, my partner, Dennis, the tech guy, and Tom, former military, our safety lead. We set up camp near the center of the preserve, near a riverbed. Peaceful, quiet, even the birds seemed relaxed. Except at night. That's when the forest changed. The first night, around 2 a.m., I woke up gasping. There was no sound. At all. No wind. No leaves. No insects. Even the river was silent, like someone had pressed mute on the entire forest. I stepped out of my tent. The silence was oppressive, so thick it buzzed in my ears. Tom was already outside, flashlight in hand. He looked pale. You feel that? He asked. It's like the trees are holding their breath. The next morning, Dennis checked the audio logs from the recorders we left around the site. One by one, they'd all gone dead between 1:57 and 2:03 a.m. No clicks. No static. Just a void. Like sound itself had been deleted. We joked about it over breakfast, tried to shake the nerves, but something gnawed at me. I knew that kind of silence wasn't natural. I suggested we stay out of the northern area for now, just until we got better bearings. Kara disagreed. That's where the densest forest is. That's the core of the job. She was right. We went north that afternoon. It took us hours to get there. The trees grew closer together, darker, like they didn't want us there. And then we found it. A clearing with no wildlife, no tracks, just a wide circle of dead grass and bone-dry soil. And in the center, a cabin. Old. Rotting. The roof sagged, but the structure stood. No windows. No door. Kara approached first. There's something inside, she whispered. I can hear it breathing. I told her there was no way. It was too quiet. But as I stepped closer, I felt it too, a rhythm. Low and steady. Like a giant creature asleep under the floor. Dennis raised the camera. Let's document and get the hell out. But the moment he took the photo, the forest went silent again. And the door that hadn't been there before, creaked open. We should have run. We almost did. But something pulled at us. Not curiosity. Something deeper. Like gravity. Like being drawn into a nightmare you forgot was yours. Tom muttered, "This is wrong," over and over. This is not a place we should be. Inside the cabin, the air was stale, thick. We found markings on the walls, symbols carved deep into the wood. Circles, eyes, spirals. There were piles of animal bones in the corners. And in the center, a well, just a pit carved into the earth, maybe 4 feet across. When I leaned over it, I heard voices. Not one. Dozens. Hundreds. all whispering the same thing. The forest eats sound. That night, back at camp, Tom disappeared. No scream, no warning. One moment he was by the fire. The next gone. His boots were still there. Just his boots. We called his name. No echo. The radios hissed nothing but silence. Dennis lost it, grabbed a flashlight, and ran into the woods. I chased him, but the beam of his light just vanished. Like the trees swallowed it. I found his camera an hour later, smashed against a tree. The last photo was of the cabin, but in the corner a figure. Tall, thin, its head tilted too far. No face, just skin pulled tight where features should have been. Behind it, Tom's shape, frozen, staring. Now it's just me and Kara. We packed to leave, but the forest didn't let us. The trail we came in on, gone. The riverbed, vanished. The trees had moved. At night, we don't sleep. We take turns watching. The forest whispers to us now, but not in words, in memories. I heard my mother's voice, the smell of my childhood room, my old dog barking. Then silence again, so loud it made my ears bleed. Last night, Kara started talking in her sleep, repeating something over and over. The well is a mouth. The silence is its hunger. This morning, she walked off toward the cabin. I begged her to stop, screamed, but there was no sound, not even my own voice. She turned to me once, smiled sadly, and mouthed, "It's my turn." Then she vanished between the trees. I'm alone now. I haven't heard a bird in days. Haven't felt wind. The fire doesn't crackle anymore. It just glows. I think the forest is closing in. The silence follows me like a shadow. It's not just absence of sound. It's a thing. It eats the noise. It needs it, and it's almost full. If you find this journal, don't come looking for us. Don't try to map Stillwater. Don't answer the silence, because once it knows your name, it never lets go. I moved into my new apartment 2 weeks ago. It's a small unit on the second floor of a crumbling building in an old part of town. The rent was cheap, the walls were thin, and there were no neighbors on either side, so I figured it was a decent deal. I didn't expect much, just a place to sleep and keep my things. But from the moment I moved in, something didn't feel right. The first night, I woke up around 2:30 a.m., my skin prickling with a sense of dread. I chalked it up to the stress of moving. I'm not used to new places, especially old ones, and I'd been feeling a little off-kilter. The apartment was dark, silent, except for the soft hum of the fridge. Then I heard it, a soft shuffling sound. At first, I thought it was just the building settling, but it wasn't. It was too deliberate. The sound came from underneath my bed. I froze. My heart raced, my breath shallow. I tried to convince myself it was a rodent, maybe a rat, though I knew that was a stretch. I hadn't seen any signs of pests when I moved in. The sound stopped. I lay still for a long time, but nothing happened. Slowly, I told myself to go back to sleep. It was just my imagination. The next morning, I got up and went about my day. I didn't tell anyone about what happened the night before. No big deal, right? But it happened again that night. The shuffling sound under the bed, slow and deliberate, just like the night before. I could hear it clearly now. It was almost like someone was moving around down there, like they were trying to get comfortable. I was terrified, but I didn't want to acknowledge it. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't check under the bed. I told myself I was just being paranoid. By the third night, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I was lying in bed, trying to fall asleep, when I heard the noise again. It was so much louder now, scraping, like someone was dragging themselves across the floor beneath my bed. The sound was followed by the faintest whisper. I couldn't make out the words, but it was unmistakably a voice. I sat up in bed, heart pounding, and stared at the space under the bed. The darkness seemed deeper than usual, like the shadows were stretching toward me. I had to know what was making the sound. I had to see. I swung my legs off the bed, my feet touching the cold wooden floor, and slowly got down on my hands and knees. My breath was shaky. My hands were clammy. The whispers came again, this time louder, but still indistinct. I hesitated for a moment, then crawled over to the edge of the bed and looked underneath. There was nothing there. Nothing. I felt a rush of relief, but I didn't let myself relax. Something still didn't feel right. I crawled back into bed, telling myself I was overreacting. My heart still raced, though, and I lay awake for hours, listening to the silence. The next night, the shuffling noise was back. This time it was worse. The scraping wasn't just under the bed, it was moving. It started at the foot of the bed, then slowly crept closer to the headboard. It was slow and heavy, like something or someone was dragging itself across the floor. And then I heard it, a low, rasping voice, almost a whisper, but not quite. "Help me, please." I shot up in bed, my heart pounding in my throat. I was paralyzed with fear, staring at the edge of the bed. The voice, it was so close that it felt like it was coming from under the bed, right next to my ear. I didn't move. I couldn't. The whispers continued, growing louder. The voice wasn't just begging now. It was pleading. "Help me. I'm trapped." I was sweating, my body trembling, but I didn't move. I couldn't bring myself to look under the bed again. My mind screamed at me to get out of the apartment, but I couldn't leave. I was frozen, rooted to the spot. The next morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I went to the landlord's office, trembling, and asked if there had ever been any reports of strange occurrences in the building. He looked at me with an odd expression, as if I had just asked him the wrong question. "There are rumors," he said, "about an old man who used to live in that apartment. He died a long time ago, before the building was even renovated. But people say he never really left." I pressed him for more details, but he refused to say anything further. I went back to my apartment, my mind racing with thoughts of what I'd heard and what the landlord had said. That night, I stayed up, terrified. I was waiting for the whispers to return. But I didn't hear anything. Not at first. It wasn't until about 3 a.m. that I heard the scraping again. This time, it was louder, closer. It was coming from under the bed. But this time, I didn't hesitate. I stood up, my legs shaking, and walked over to the bed. I didn't crawl. I didn't get on my hands and knees. I stood, staring down at the dark space beneath me. And that's when I saw it. A pair of eyes. A pair of glowing eyes, peering up at me from under the bed. I screamed and ran out of the room, my heart pounding. I didn't stop running until I reached the street. I haven't been back since. I've told everyone I know about what happened. Some of them laugh, some look at me like I'm crazy. But I know what I saw, and I know what I heard. There's something, or someone, under that bed, and it's not alone. I've been staying in a hotel ever since. I don't know if I'll ever go back to that apartment. But if you ever find yourself in that building, in that room, alone, listen carefully. You might hear the scraping, and the whisper. "Help me, please. I'm still here."